Welcome to the What Now podcast, where we document our journey through chiropractic. Our goal is to give you, the new chiropractor, our firsthand experience in running a principled, cash-based practice right out of school. Join us as we bring you real perspective, lessons learned, and the leading names in the profession as we build the practices of our dreams. Yo, everybody. What is up? Welcome back to another episode of the What Now podcast. Spencer and Zach back at it today with an amazing guest. Zach, tell everybody who we have today.
Yeah, so thankfully for y'all, it is not a Dolo cast. We are joined by the one and only Dr. Morgan Plantamura, based out of Austin, Texas, with Truly Chiropractic. Super excited to have her on and really dive into everything she's been up to. So Dr. Morgan, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So with that, we like to be as authentic as possible. So without sharing for 30 minutes, catch listeners up to speed. If they were to see your life over the last 5 years as you built out 2 practices, what would be some of the highlights?
Yeah, so I opened Truly right after I graduated from chiropractic school. So opened in 2019, the summer of 2019. And since then, yeah, we've grown to 2 locations, one in South Austin and one in North Austin as well. We acquired a practice back in 2023, end of 2023. Dr. Ben, he's an amazing chiropractor practitioner. So we met, and our visions were so aligned. We were like, why not join forces rather than practice 25 minutes down the road from each other? So that's kind of how the second location came to be, which we can dive into more of that later. But yeah, so that's like one of the main highlights. 2020, I brought on my first associate, which is kind of crazy. Literally a year into practice was when I hired on Dr. Lindsay Matthews of BirthFit. And so I got very, very fortunate that she wanted to step back into practice in my office back in 2020. And so she was a part of Truly. So that's a highlight for sure. Really catapulted my start in leadership in Truly, leadership in adding more docs to our team, more CAs to our team, all of that. But we are obviously family practice, full cash since the beginning. And our big goal for 2025 is to be $1 million practice. So that's kind of the highlights of the practice part of it. I also met my husband in 2020, got married in 2022. And so that's also been an amazing journey right alongside me building Truly. So my life's pretty interesting. There's always something going on, always something kind of crazy. I'm, pretty driven on where I see the vision of Truly and where I see us going. We really want to be the first call in Austin. Austin's a very holistically minded community, but they sometimes forget what that means. And so really changing the way Austin thinks about pediatric health and women's health and guiding them into the direction of the foundation of that being in the nervous system and through chiropractic care has been really our main mission. So that's where multiple locations come in. We have big vision for the future with that as well. So that there's a pediatric focused, nervous system focused family practice on, every main pocket in Austin really is the big vision and goal. But that was a very all over the place.
That's perfect. That's perfect. You crushed
version of the last 5 years. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like whenever you open up, especially like right out of school, like that's kind of how it feels, right? Like it's like an all over the place. Like I have a lot going on in a lot of different directions, and the skill is really to kind of focus in and hone in on that vision. So how did your vision kind of start out whenever you opened right out of school, and how has that developed like over the last 5 years? Like, is the vision always been the same? Like, did you graduate and you're like, I'm going to take over Austin, or how did that kind of develop for you?
Totally. Yep. My vision's always been very, very clear. Like I knew, that goes all the way back, I think so I went to the University of Texas in Austin. That's when I fell in love with Austin. So I graduated from there in 2015. And I really knew that I wanted to be a business owner. And that's really what started my journey with chiropractic and choosing chiropractic school is I wanted to own my own business. I wanted to be my own boss. And then chiropractic school literally changed my entire life. And I'm sure a lot of people have that story either before chiropractic changed your life or in chiropractic school it changed your life. It changed the trajectory of my health. It changed the trajectory of my entire family's health, which I'm so fortunate that that was the case. But I had a very, very clear vision of wanting to come down to Austin because I felt like there was a need here. Especially whenever I first opened, there was a ton of sports chiropractors. There was a ton of people talking about injury and pain and all of that kind of management. Like I shadowed and worked for several chiropractors in that area whenever I was in college. And so I knew like pediatrics was just not it was not covered the way that it needed to be. Like, yes, there was a handful of really amazing chiropractors here, but Austin's big and it's growing a ton. And so I knew the day that I wanted to open Truly that I had really big dreams and big goals of expanding not only our initial location, but also expanding into multiple areas in Austin. So, I mean, we have people driving an hour and a half to see us, which I'm sure a lot of people have that story. But to be able to like start to really train up amazing associate docs under these first two initial hubs and locations, building them up to be able to go open another Truly Chiropractic in the area of their choice is where we see us going. So that's really always been at the back of my mind for sure. We have a few things too that we're working on, which I'm going to put it out in the universe because I've been telling every single person in the office in my life. There's a property that's right across the highway from us, and that is the vision. Like that is the vision I've had since day one. Like, and I know it's like not being in a center anymore, like getting out, having your own space, building community. And there's a property like right on the other side of the highway that we're hopefully going to get and that be really a hub for training up amazing associate docs, training up amazing chiropractors, and building a really strong central community in Austin. And giving a lot of these moms a place and a lot of these families a place to feel like they're a part of something bigger than maybe what mainstream world is telling them. So yeah, it's always been there. I think if you have, obviously my vision's going to ebb and flow. I know my husband and I want to start a family this year. So, you know, maybe the 2-year goal of having 4 more locations is not going to be realistic. But the vision is still there for sure.
That's amazing.
That's really cool. That's really cool.
So like
Yeah, vision's important.
Yeah, I mean that's when Zach and I have done like a startup crash course 2 years in a row now, and that's the first thing that we touch on is vision. And when we talk to a lot of people who listen to this podcast, especially when they're coming right out of school, we first ask them, they're like, how do I do this and how do I do that? And it's like, well, first you have to have a vision of what you want to create. So like you were saying, like with you and Ben, like joining up and teaming up together to get into that second location, how do you convey that vision to other people and like to your associates? Like you said, you brought Lindsay on, who obviously has her own vision for BirthFit. But like taking people into your ecosystem, what are you doing to establish like a culture around that vision?
That's so important. And I would say this is something I've learned with bringing on associates. I've had a few, and that should be the first question you ask any associate you want to bring on the team is what's their vision before you even tell them yours. Because if you start with your vision, I found they'll just be like, yeah, I love that vision. That's great. But then you start to like actually be in the vision that I've created. And then they're like, oh, I don't know, like maybe this isn't totally what I want and clear. So I feel like having like for Ben and I knew Ben's vision before I shared mine. Like I knew where he was and what he wanted for his practice, for Austin, for chiropractic, for his community. And so when I shared mine, it just matched up. And finding the people that are in alignment with your vision without them knowing it is huge. People wanting to be a part of your team. But yeah, I think it is, one, I'm a very passionate person, and so I um I think like my team is very clear on what my vision is and what our where we're headed and what our goals are, and how we, and very convicted in chiropractic. And um I think the best thing though is actually holding space for your team to like get there too. Um, because I know it takes time to develop that vision for yourself. And if you aren't clear on it, you're going to be stagnant. You're going to be stuck. You're not going to know what decisions are right or wrong. And so if you know exactly what your values are and exactly what your vision is, it's very easy to make decisions on what's going to get you to the place that you want to go. But yeah, I think something I've learned is honestly letting them share their vision and seeing how it aligns with yours and how you can actually promote them to get to their goal, under the umbrella of yours. That's something really, really big that I've been working on this past year that I don't think I did a very good job of previously, just to call myself out on it. I mean, we're all learning as we go. And so that's something that I've learned along the way that I think is super valuable.
I think too that, I mean, one is so big, like just staying focused on your vision and allowing it to expand and change. But I think too, from like a clinical side of things, and I know Spencer does, but I'm sure you do the same thing. Like when you sit down with a patient, you don't just immediately start telling them about your vision for their health, right? You get to know what's going on with them and where they want to go and those type of things. And then you're like, okay, this is how we're going to help you get there, under the umbrella of
Yep.
chiropractic. So I think it definitely goes hand in hand.
Yeah.
And I think it's been very, for me, like I'm going through another process, like revisiting my vision, what are my goals and my mission for the practice. And it's amazing just the things you start to do and implement, and the things that you also look back on, which will lead me into my question of like, what are things when you revisit your vision that you're like, man, I was doing this the first 2 years and then I had to change that or stop doing that?
Yeah. Gosh, there's, I think, so one thing, I don't know that I've necessarily stopped or changed anything. I've just gotten more strategic. I think everything's a learning lesson, and your systems are so important that I think something that I would have maybe done differently is, before I didn't take my first like vacation until I got married, and it was like a longer one. And so I was gone for 2 weeks or almost 3 weeks when I got married for my wedding and my honeymoon. And I learned a lot. And I learned a lot of like, okay, where our systems were failing and where they were doing really well with me being out of the practice. And maybe I should have done that a little bit earlier, like given more ownership to my team from the get-go. I tended to be, so I guess my lesson was, I tended to be a really big micromanager at the beginning, instead of like building up my team to take ownership of their role and really step into their own leadership. And so that's something that I feel like I've, um, I guess, like moved through or worked through. I don't know if that answers your question at all,
No,
but
it does for sure.
um, I think that's one thing, especially if your vision is to grow the brand outside of just you. I've said this from the beginning, like, yes, I am CEO, founder of Truly Chiropractic, but Truly Chiropractic is not me. And so it is all of us. It is a collective. It is all of us moving the needle forward and building the brand up. And if we really want it to be a big brand in Austin, it can't be Dr. Morgan Plantamura. And so having my team take ownership of the brand as well is something I think I've really moved through, with reflecting on the vision that I have from the beginning and where I'm at right now is not holding the reins so tightly on my team and really allowing them to develop into their own leadership has been a big change. Yeah. Or learning lesson.
Yeah, I mean, I think that what I was like immediately thinking of, like right whenever you were talking about that, is like you can't do it alone if you have a big
Mm-hmm.
vision, right? Like to have multiple locations and really dominate a market in a large metropolitan city like you, like our vision is to do the same, is like really is to be like the go-to resource for family care in the North Texas area. And like
Mm-hmm.
that's all the way like through like up really up to like Oklahoma City, I guess, from Dallas up. And really like to be a hub like for people, not just for chiropractic care, but like for their family in general. Like we want
Mm-hmm.
people when they think like, oh, my family needs X, Y, and Z, pictures with Santa or all of those kind of things, like to be like, I know that Empower has that for us. And you can't do it
Mm-hmm.
alone. And I think one of the biggest things that like I've learned is that the more that I just get out of the way, the better I'm going to do that. And so I hire a bunch of different team members to take care of certain things. And so, one, I would like, it would be awesome if you could touch a little bit on like, what does your team look like right now at 2 locations? And how is that
Mm-hmm.
different from when you had 1 location? And then 2, like who's on your board of advisors? Like who's the team taking care of you so you can take care of your team for Truly? I think that's a big thing that
Yeah.
people neglect is like, man, I have so many people that I just like have asked to do all kind of things like my financial advising and my tax strategy and my scaling stuff, like, and so yeah, talk a little bit about that, like what's your team look like around you?
Yeah. Great question. Right now, my current team underneath me is this last year was the first year that I did bring on an office manager. So when we did acquire the second location, I made the decision to bring on an office manager. Timing of it all worked out. It's somebody who's been with me honestly since the beginning and has come kind of in and out based off of her life and what she had going on. So when she came back, it was honestly one of the only reasons I was able to even take on a second location is bringing her back in to help completely revamp systems, you know, take everything that we do in culture and like communication at South and bring that all up to North. So office manager, she's unfortunately leaving us again. She's moving to Florida, but we just hired on a beautiful, amazing soul who we're building up into our office manager role currently. And then we have Dr. Alexis, my associate doc at South. And then I have a CA at South as well. North, we have beautiful Dr. Ben, who is the lead doc there. And then we have Mairead. So Mairead, she is kind of like our building up into office manager for North. Once we, need more, I mean, she's running the fort. So she's basically office manager, but building her up into that role for the North location. She was with South for a year before we moved her up North. And that would be my number one suggestion is having people train if you're planning on ever doing more than one location, having people train for at least 90 days in your main hub so that the culture, the standards, the systems, the communication is all completely matched into your other location, or it's not going to feel congruent. So that's once we brought Mairead over to North, honestly, we've seen it catapult because she knew exactly what the Truly Way was. And she's brought that into North so beautifully as a CA. And I'm super grateful for that. So that's my team currently underneath me. Managing Truly. And then for me, my advisors, so my number one advisor since day one was my dad. So he is an entrepreneur himself, and so he was the person that I called every single day, basically, whenever I was first opening. So he was actually my main advisor for probably 2 years. And then I got moving and rocking and rolling. I learned so much from him that I was like, hey, I'm still going to call you, but I want you to be mainly my dad and not my business advisor. So we kind of made a little pivot that way. Still call him quite a bit though for questions. but he's one of my, trusted for sure. I know he's never going to steer me the wrong way. And then obviously my husband, he is also an entrepreneur, and we're very different energies. He's very creative and like kind of ADHD and just like all over the place, but in like the best way. So he is always somebody I go to for questions and things like that whenever I'm feeling more stuck in like the business aspect of things, or like leadership aspect of things, or like my mindset. And then I had a business coach for, so I was obviously a part of, Epic, which is who I trained with. And really the base of my practice was built in Epic. I know Epic's not a huge thing anymore, but that was really where I got started. And I'm super grateful to have been a part of Epic when it was. But obviously, I'm a part of PX Docs for more of the clinical stuff. If I, feel like feeling stuck in a case, our team's feeling stuck in a case, PX Docs is great. And then obviously joining Wealthy Practitioner. I had a business coach, like I mentioned, for about 2 years, and he was amazing. I loved him, but I am stepping into a season, like I mentioned, where I want to start a family, and I wanted to kind of jump back into the chiropractic coaching world. I took a break from it for about 2 years and just had a complete business coach that was like totally disconnected from chiropractic, and felt the call to kind of jump back into the chiropractic world. And that's where I found the Wealthy Practitioner. So obviously that's on my board of advisors now. And then I have my like health board too. So I get a monthly massage, I get monthly acupuncture, I get my weekly adjustment. Honestly, I'm getting way more than a weekly adjustment at this
I
point,
know, right?
probably at least twice a week. Yeah. I have my blood work done. Like, I have my people around me, as far as my health, which I feel like is really important. I know, um, I don't want to call Dr. Ben out, but yeah, I was like, Dr. Ben, when's the last time you've been adjusted? Like, I think that's just something I've always made sure, even when I didn't have somebody working with me, that I was going and seeing somebody and getting adjusted at least once a week. I think it's so important. If I'm going to preach on it all day long about how important it is to get adjustments, like, I better be getting adjusted too. Um, so that's kind of like my health crew. And then I do taxes, and wealth is a whole nother ball game. I know I've been on a journey for 6 years to find, tax strategists and CPAs that I trust. We finally feel like we found somebody, but I think it is like you can't do all of this on your own. I know I did my books literally up until last year. And so, um, letting some of that, like I said, I was a micromanager. I really have grown into stepping away from handling everything and starting to pass off some of those duties to others so I can focus on creating the vision and not doing all these small little tasks. Um, but yeah, it takes a village. And so, I wouldn't say I'm doing it perfectly right now, but every quarter I learn something new and integrate something new. So
That's awesome. That's awesome. There's a lot to learn from there too. And a question I've been just again like thinking of vision and that type of thing, but something I'm curious of. You mentioned being in Austin, tons of sports chiropractors,
mhm.
pain-based docs, that kind of stuff. Maybe a couple pediatric offices. What would you say is something you've really strived for to make truly different, whether it be from your culture or experience, all the above? Um, what makes truly different and makes y'all stand out?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you surveyed our people, it's the way that they feel when they walk through the doors in our office. Like, it's the moment that they step into our office, they feel like they're home, and they feel like you're walking into my living room. They feel like it feels like family. It doesn't, and we've been kind of joking around in our team meetings about that, because it's like such a thing to sell, like, oh, we're all family, we're in this together. But it really does, like, that's something we get told. Like, you feel like you're a part of something bigger than just like coming in and getting your name called and getting an adjustment. And I think that's what we all strive to create in our communities, is the difference that's like, it's not tangible. It's the experience. It's how you feel. I mean, literally, our postman, he walks, like, every time he drops off our mail, he literally will come in and be like, "What are y'all? Are y'all like a candle shop or like essential oil? It smells so good every time I drop off mail." And it's just like I mean, obviously we diffuse our oils every day and we have our signature scent, and like we're doing all these things that just create this like environment when you walk in that you just want to sit and hang out and you want to be a part of it. And I think that's something that really sets us apart. Also, I would say, like, I'm a really badass adjuster, so I think that sets us apart too. Like, I know that like the quality of care people are getting when they're getting adjusted by our team is top notch. And the other thing is education. Like, that's something that we've seen a lot. Like, a lot of chiropractors, or a lot of our practice members, have come from other offices in the area that maybe say they're pediatrics, or like legit do see mainly pediatrics, but had no clue why their child was getting adjusted, like what was going on, what, like, they just had no education at all. And that's something that we've heard multiple times when they come into our office, is like, wow, I actually understand why I'm getting adjusted, or why my child is getting adjusted. And that's what creates a really strong wellness community. That's what creates that, like, people who've been with us for 5 years, and since the day one, they're still getting care because they get it. They understand why, because we're educating them. It's not just like, you're not just a number to us. You're genuinely like family.
Yeah. A quick like little thing, like we have a signature scent as well. That's like a big
Mm-hmm.
important thing for me. And our people, they love it as well. Like it's always hard to say like our patients, because like I really don't. I always catch myself being like our people or our friends or things
Mm-hmm.
like that. Like, oh, I have some friends that are blah 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 blah. And I think that's like how I've always wanted my practice to be. But what is Truly's signature scent?
Yeah.
What are some things that you're like, it's always in the diffuser, no matter what, it's never going to change.
Yep. So our signature scent is Palo Santo, patchouli, and Northern Lights black spruce. So it's a very,
Nice.
like, it is a very woodsy smell,
Mhm.
but it is so calming and amazing. I know patchouli is like hit or miss for people, but I feel like the blend, like, who doesn't love Palo Santo?
Right.
Low key, my husband has, so trick for Palo Santo is the little it's like a drink smoker. So
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
like can put your, cocktail under it and smoke your drink. But basically what you do is you put the Palo Santo, you light it a little bit, put the Palo Santo in the little like smoker part of it and the tube, and you just like go ham and spray it around the whole office. It is so, because Palo Santo always just like burns out really fast. And
It
so this
does.
will really get it in there. But yeah, that's our signature. We've been diffusing it since literally day one. Now we will we'll do Christmas, like Christmas scents during Christmas
Christmas
time.
spirit.
Like,
Gotta
we'll
get it.
throw in some lemon. Yeah, you got to do Christmas spirit. It's too good. We'll do like luscious lemon, like in the summer, like the spring. Like, we will try to mix it up a little bit, but we have roller bottles of it. Like, it is our go-to signature scent um, in our office. Yeah.
Oh, that's a really good idea of like taking your signature scent and turn it into a roller and then you can like give it to people.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yep. Or you
What's
can
your
do like a
signature
mist, a
scent?
room mist. Yeah.
Yeah.
For our office, it's in the morning. It's really just frankincense and orange. But then in the afternoon,
Love it.
some of us get a little snoozy after our lunches, and so we do either breathe from like just straight doTERRA, or we do lemon,
Mm-hmm.
eucalyptus, and something else.
Love it.
Yep.
Nice.
Yep.
Ours
What
is
about you?
frankincense.
Yeah.
Yeah, ours is frankincense, thieves, and lemon.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm.
it's like a little bit of like that like woodsy
Mm-hmm.
like cinnamon
Cinnamon.
smell with
Yep.
like the energy, but then like the grounding nature of frankincense. It's awesome. It
Mm-hmm.
feels like you're in like a, yeah, it's really cool. I think it's different though. Like I think like when you have a signature scent though, it has to be stuff that you really like that
Yeah.
like gets you in the vibe too. Like
Mm-hmm.
Palo Santo and patchouli like reminds me of just like Kairos camps back in the
Yeah.
day, like with Zach.
Well, maybe that just is taking me back, and that's where I that's when I started all of that. So I
Yeah,
can see
and
that.
Northern Lights Black Spruce is what I put in my little card diffuser instead of getting like the
Mm-hmm.
Febreze like kill your testosterone and your hormones thing. I
Right.
have like the little
100%.
Young Living diffuser thing, and I put the black
Yeah.
spruce on there. I really like it. So I know what your office smells like. It's great.
Yeah. It is.
Um, that's
It's
super
very
cool. So
warming, inviting. Yeah.
it's all grounding, right? Like I think
Mm-hmm.
a big thing in the chiropractic office and the reason like why people feel like family and why people love offices that make them feel like home and why it's so important to cultivate a culture of like hominess and family is because in every other place in the world besides their home, they're here and there and here and there. I mean, even though like with parents too, even at their house, they're here and there and they're bouncing around and all those kind of things. And when you can go to a place that is truly grounding and really brings you back into your body, and nothing brings back awareness to your body like a good solid neurologically like nervous system focused adjustment like
Mm-hmm.
that's delivered skillfully, because you can
Exactly.
have all the analysis and suck at delivering the adjustment, or you could be really good at the adjustment and have no
Mm-hmm.
analysis,
Right.
and it's still those are both dysregulating. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think it really speaks to something about that. How The biggest question is, how are you diffusing the message of chiropractic? Like, what are your vehicles of delivery of your communication? Like,
Mm-hmm.
obviously you have your table talk, but like,
Right.
what are some of your key points and key communication vehicles that you have in your practice that really gets people to get that message?
Yeah. Yeah, great question. So obviously, I think one thing that we have strived to do is education, specifically this last year. So you will see on our website, a lot of webinars, a lot of guides. We send that out actually to every single any inquiry we get. We are sending them one of our webinars if it relates to something that they're coming in with, to pre-educate, get them the science, get them the why. And I mean, they can choose to watch it or not, but we also have a guide that's related to that. So if they want to watch it or if they want to skim through a guide, and they have that available to them. So that's one way that we do it, is through webinars. The other thing that we do is I know not everybody sits down like knee to knee with their new patients, but we do. You're going to get 20 minutes at least with our doctor, and that's on day one. And we're going to be, yes, listening, but also connecting dots for people. Like a lot of people don't realize like the symptom that they're having and how people don't even understand the nervous system. Like people are talking about the nervous system left, right, and center all over social media, but like people actually don't understand the like generics of how our nervous system functions and how it directly impacts every single thing you do every single day, how we perceive, adapt, and recover to our environment. And so even just like making that small connection on day one to whatever it is that is going on for them is huge. So that's something that obviously we do. We really sit knee to knee and make sure that we're listening, but also connecting that to how their nervous system is functioning. And then we do scans. I know scans, I don't know how anybody would practice without scans if you're going to see kids, but we do our insight scans, which is super powerful at connecting how your nervous system, and then what's chiropractic going to do about it, and being able to prove that and show that to people through our day two process. So going through scans with them, connecting all of that with them, I think is huge. I think the other thing is like my team is, I mean, my team is experiencing chiropractic. We have them under care plans. We have them getting scanned regularly. We share wins all the time with our team meeting. Like we really want to make sure that our team understands what we're doing in the office so that they can communicate it as well. Because sometimes they're chatting up there with our practice members more than the docs, are able to during a shift. And so they're able to connect those dots for people and educate people on the phone, or like, oh my gosh, yeah, we just had the same case, walked through our doors and had amazing results. And like making sure that our team is also a part of that process. Because sometimes the doctor feels like so far away at the beginning, like, oh, you know too much. Like this is way over my head. Whereas if you get your team communicating chiropractic, like it's you're speaking their language. And I think that's something that's super powerful, is making sure that your team gets it too. Um, yeah, I think that's, I mean, outside of
No, yeah,
obviously table
those are all
talk
the answers
and social media
where
and our newsletter and all of that. But
yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong, you have like a social media content program, right?
yeah, we do. So whenever I started creating these webinars and like email campaigns and all of this for Truly, I was like, oh my gosh, I would have killed to have something like this as like 2 years ago. And so, yeah, we started the content well. Um, I don't want to speak too much on what it was because we are completely rebranding and relaunching in January. And I am so excited for what we are going to be able to do with the content well. I am bringing on a like super amazing marketer who has been in marketing for 12 years. Because what I found is my capacity. I was like, yes, I can do this. I can crush this. And I'm still, like I mentioned, I'm working full time. I took on a new location. I like training team, wanting to still be able to feed into my associate docs. I was like, okay, I can't do this by myself. I need help. And it just totally worked out to align with my dear friend. Her name's also Stephanie. So we are revamping, relaunching, and with like the power of a full marketing strategist behind the chiropractic communication aspect of things. Because I think if you're like just what I was just a chiropractor, like thinking, like knowing I had value in everything I was doing, knowing that I like was seeing how it was working for me in my practice and educating our people. But executing that on like the back end marketing aspect of things is a lot. And so she is the marketing guru, and I'm really, really excited for what that is going to be. So be on the lookout for a relaunch in January.
Yeah, I know Caitlin and I were just talking about like some of our content, and it really is so hard to like, as someone who's like a visionary and not like a big like, yes, creative, but not like a marketing creative person. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
so hard to be like, we're gonna plan our whole marketing calendar and do all those things. And we were kind of like exploring our other options and just being like, it'd be good like to get like into the content. Well, Caitlin always talks about it. She's like, it's so great. Like they have all these webinars and stuff.
Yeah,
And we're starting to put out a lot more educational material as
for
well for
sure.
our practice members because that's so important. And um, I love how you're like, yeah, I'm just going to bring in a marketer to do this. Like I'm going to stamp my vision on this, and I'm going to take my chiropractic education. I'm going to fuel that source, but I'm going to let somebody else drive the vehicle because they're better at it
Mm-hmm.
than me. That's like kind of
Yeah.
like that's like my filter is if somebody can go to school and get a degree for it, I probably should hire them out and not try to do it myself. Like all the way
I
from
think
like,
that's, it's like you're saying, like who's on your team. And I think we all try to be all of it. And I know I
yep.
did that for years. I tried to be my social media marketing strategist, which I forgot to mention, I hired out for that last year as well. We tried to be I tried to be my office manager. I tried to be my bookkeeper, my like creating all of this, like doing newsletters every week and trying to practice full time and still maintaining my ability to be like amazing at chiropractic, growing my skill, growing my education. Like, I think if all of us started letting some of the other things go to people who are really, really good at it, and that's what I'm in the season of doing, is letting some of it go. Um, like we are going to be even better chiropractors, and we're going to see our practice grow tenfold just because of that. And that's what I know our doctor team is really focused on right now, is like, okay, forget marketing. Like, to be honest, it's like we gotta, like, yes, we should go meet with other practitioners. We should like make sure we're doing some of these things to educate our people, but how are we getting better at being like the absolute best chiropractor we can possibly be in office? Because I don't know about y'all, but our number one referral system source now is patient referrals. It's
Yep.
literally 60% of our new patients. And so like if we are giving them the best possible experience in the office every single time they come in, we're going to grow regardless of what we do outside. And I think chiropractic this last 5 years, and I know I have too, like we got a little lost in like trying to be like intense marketing strategists and like stopped putting as much effort into being amazing chiropractors. And I think if we all just like worked a little bit more on being amazing chiropractors,
More.
we're going to see the growth that we want to see.
So it's so funny you talking about that, because this was literally Spencer and I's conversation last week, was realizing like
Really?
going through chiropractic school, like all we cared about was mastering the adjustment and like getting really
Mm-hmm.
good at clinical things. And then you open a business and you're like, I mean, I don't want to speak for you, but you could probably be on autopilot when you're adjusting people and get
Yeah.
really good results. But like
Mm-hmm.
taking it to that next level is like, oh wow. But like for the first 2 years of us being open, we realized we haven't put as nearly as much emphasis on our chiropractic training as much as our business training. And it's
Yeah.
like, no, let's
Yeah.
go back to like what we're really good at. That's been a big focus of mine in the last like 6 weeks.
Well, I
Yeah.
mean, like
I
when you
think it's
start a
huge.
practice, when you start your practice, like you don't have the resources to go out and have everyone do
100%.
everything for you. I mean, some people
Mm-hmm.
do, but I would say that 50% of people
90,
don't.
I mean, honestly, probably 90% of
Yeah,
people
right. I
Mm-hmm.
mean,
don't. I mean, it's the,
like
yeah.
yeah, I mean, not everybody can go out there. And so you have to learn. And I think that learning period and that like startup phase is so important because it gives you enough
Mm-hmm.
information for you to kind of hold yourself in that conversation. Like, okay, I know what the standard for my bookkeeping is. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to hire a bookkeeper that can hold that standard. I know what
Yep.
the standard is for a new patient intake phone call. And so I'm going to hold you to that standard because
Mm-hmm.
I've done it myself. I haven't just watched a video on a startup course training and now I'm
Right.
telling you to do it and I'm saying that you need to do this better when I've never done it myself. So I think there
Right.
is a lot of value in that startup grind mode where you are everything to everyone. And at the
100%.
same time, you can't ascend to your next level if you're being the same thing for everyone. It would be like you're in your networking group and your
Mm-hmm.
bookkeeper is like, man, my neck really hurts. And you're like, oh, you should come in for chiropractic care. And they're like, no, I just do it myself. And you're
Right.
like, and they like crack their neck in front of you. And they're like, oh, I just do it
Yeah.
myself. So when you
Yeah.
sit across from your bookkeeper and your bookkeeper's like, are you keeping your books? And you're like, yeah, I just do it myself. They're like,
Mm-hmm.
what are you talking about? Like, you can't be that
Yeah.
good at it. Like, I went to school for
Yeah.
this, right? But in
Totally.
chiropractic, we're like, no, I need to do this. And that makes you a slave to your practice. You can never get away.
Mm-hmm.
You can never
Mm-hmm.
go on vacation. You can never do all these things because you're working 12 full-time jobs, 10 full-time
Yeah.
jobs. And
Yeah. It's so true. And I think to your point too, the startup phase, you have to like in that time you have more you do have more
you
time.
have more time.
You're not seeing the volume of adjustments at the beginning. So that is a perfect time not to hire out, like and get it all honed in. Just know what you want. How do you want your marketer to market? Like how do you want your social media to look before you bring on a social media person, because they might have a totally different vision for what the your page looks like than you do. And so I think that first really year should be spent getting your like every single like write out your org structure, do all of those things. How do you want these people to be, how do you want things to look, how do you want things to be accomplished, what are the KPIs for that, like all of these things per person. And then you can start to say, okay, what is giving me the least amount of joy right now? Like I personally love doing my books, so it was fun for me. It was one of those tasks that was like, okay, I needed a mindless task to just like accomplish, and that was doing my books. But I know some people that would be like so draining for them, and like actually like the other like creating something, like a fun reel was what brought them joy or whatever. So I think it is like you start to that first year really like figure out what it is you want all these people to do for you, and then you're knowing exactly what the effort level is, what how much time it's taking you, so then you feel okay paying for it. And I know Dr. Steph talks about that with like buying back your time. Like you've done it, so like when somebody quotes you X amount of dollars, you're like, okay, I know it's worth it because of X, Y, and Z and how much time I'm actually going to get back in my life.
Yep.
But yeah, the first year, like you should be doing it all, especially if you're opening a business. But I would say for even like associates, like they should be focusing on being the absolute best chiropractor in the world. Like, I think, and as they grow and gain more leadership in your office, you can promote into like, hey, now you're going to be a part of, but I've made mistakes of like, oh, you needed to be doing all these things for our marketing. And I'm like, really, they should have just been focused on being the best chiropractor in the world, because that's why I really hired them.
Yep.
And then as they grow with the company, they, can gain what is something that you really love to do? Is it recording videos? Is it doing social media? Is it meeting with people and going to networking events because you're super social? What is it that brings you joy? And like, okay, now we can pivot maybe some of your hours to focus then on something like that. But yeah.
I think that's a huge thing that we see in our profession is that people hire associates because they have created this, like, I call it, you create a jail cell practice where you're stuck
Mm-hmm.
doing everything for everyone, and so they bring on an associate and then they pass that off and they just hate it. And
Right.
like we just have to sit and think, like, this is for Kate and I, we're looking to bring on an associate in the next coming year or so, is just like, okay, we need to make sure that we have a clear defined role for them, because if they
Mm-hmm.
wanted to do business owner things, they would have opened up their own business. And the whole reason
Exactly.
that people are applying for associateships is because they want leadership and direction and consistency, and they want a defined role. But whenever we bring
Mm-hmm.
people in and they're like, you need to be doing networking, you need to be sending out mailers, you need to be doing screenings, you need to be going to do all these things. They're like, dude, I didn't sign up for that. I signed up to be a
Yeah.
chiropractor. I signed up to take really great care of people and get paid well. Like,
Yeah.
and
And I
like,
think we tend to hire too soon. Like we, because we want at that point in time, it's like, and I do think you should hire too soon other than too late, but we expect them to come on and be like growth associates for us, and that's not really what they signed up for.
what is your sweet spot for that?
I would say, so I have two points, because I say that and then I also know capacity of associates is different. Like
Yep.
I can see a lot more than my associates can. You know what I mean? And so I have to make sure that, like, I've built my capacity to where I'm at right now. I didn't just show up, and I think new grads, like, you can get burnt out really quick going into a fast-paced pediatric practice. And I think to any like new grads out there or people in school who think they want to be in a fast-paced pediatric high-volume practice, you need to go shadow a ton of them before you make that decision, because the expectation is that you can
Hi.
handle that. Yeah.
Yep.
And and I know something I've asked, like added to some of the associate conversations is, what are you doing outside of, what does your morning routine look like? What are you doing to fill your cup? What are you doing to make sure that you can handle the volume at which like our practice specifically expects, and what our people deserve? And making sure that burnout isn't something that they're going to hit really fast just purely because of volume. Like, burnout shouldn't happen because of the volume you're experiencing, I don't think, unless I'm asking you to see 500 people a week, like, which I'm
Yep.
not. So I would, our like, my capacity is 300 a week. I feel really comfortable seeing 300 a week by myself. Like, I feel it's fun. I love the shift. I'm like having a good time. I feel good in my body. That's kind of where I'm at, but I know that takes time for a new associate to work up to. And that is a point where it's like, hey, I need an associate. Like, we need to be hiring. I don't expect you to see 300 a week every single week for forever. So like right now, my expectation for my associate doc is 150, where she's at currently. Now that can grow as she continues to grow and develop, but that might not. She might want to stay at 150, and that's okay. That just means we need to open up the schedule for somebody else to come in. So I think asking that too, as far from an associate, like what the expectation is, and if they really understand that, because some new grads are coming out and they've only adjusted 20 people in a week, maybe
Yep.
tops. And then
Yeah,
they're
maybe.
walking in to a practice where they're going from 20 to 150 and they haven't done strikes. They haven't done I know things about Kairos that I really loved as far as making sure my body was ready to take on the
Mm-hmm.
volume that I'm seeing and not break it down. And so, yeah, making sure like your docs know that, because I know I've hit, and this is just coming from experience with having multiple different types of associate docs in the office, is making sure you know what their capacity is and if that is aligned with what you are hiring for. But yeah.
That's so awesome.
I think that's great. That's great.
Yeah. I mean, that's literally gold. Like if you guys take anything away, like I mean, all the stuff that you're just talking about probably in this last like 8 to 10 minutes or so, like that was the good stuff right there. You're in your groove for sure. That was awesome.
Yeah.
Zach, you
We
got
were
any
warming up
closing
at the
remarks?
beginning.
Yeah, right.
Took us a second. I think the biggest thing, and you've hinted at it a little bit, but you've just finished 5 years, and I know you're doing coaching with Steph and like probably creating your 5-year vision. What does both like patient care look like for you in the next 5 years, and like what is your goal as a CEO, and not necessarily as a chiropractor?
Yeah. So, few things. My 5-year vision is one, we're starting a family, so my capacity will shift as far as patient care goes, but I will always practice. I love it too much. But I do see myself not being full time like I am currently. In the next 5 years, our plan is to move into this new beautiful location and have that rocking and rolling and moving and growing and creating more community there, and then opening a third location. The other aspect of that is content well. So bringing Stephanie on and co-founding that with her and relaunching it. We have really, really exciting things that we're working on. And so that's also in my 5-year plan, is to bring value to not only my practices with up-leveling the content well, but also practices all over the country, providing resources and marketing and newsletters and email drip systems and campaigns and AI and some really cool stuff that we're working on. And so bringing that to the community starting in January, that's really a part of the 5-year vision. It is, this next year, I do know that my schedule is going to need to be a little bit reworked, but I do love practice. I love being in with my people in office. And so I don't see myself ever taking that away, but definitely with the amount of things that are going to be on my plate in the next 5 years, I'll have to restructure that a little bit.
Awesome. Excited to see it all come to fruition.
Yeah, me too.
Especially the building.
Yeah, the building
fun.
it's going to be amazing. So it's going to work out.
Yes, we are. Yep. We're in the same boat, praying for some beautiful space. I know how exciting it is to move to a new office. So really hope that works out for you guys.
Yeah, you too.
Morgan, thanks so much for being on the What Now podcast. This has really been awesome. Like I said, there's so much gold there. Where can people follow you on Instagram and stay up to date with you?
Yeah, so you can follow me. I'm Dr. Morgan Plantamura on Instagram, or Truly Chiropractic, Truly Chiropractic North. Those are our offices. And then if you want to know anything about the upcoming rebrand launch, you can follow us at the Content Well as well.
Sweet.
Awesome.
Cool.
Well, thanks so much for coming on,
Awesome.
Dr. Morgan.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate your time.
Yep. Thanks so much, guys, for listening to another episode of the What Now podcast. Peace. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the What Now podcast. If you took something valuable away, feel free to share it with a friend, post it on your socials, or give us a 5-star review. We'll see y'all next time. Peace.